Welcome to Prototype Thinking in Action. This is the podcast where we talk to founders, dive into one big challenge that they are facing, and help them solve it by using the prototype thinking method. Let's get started.
Hi, it's so nice to see you again. It's been
Yeah,
a
no
while.
kidding. No kidding. Long time no see.
It sounds like you've been on fire. How have you been?
So really good, actually.
We have so much to talk about. So it's been a few months since you did some user testing with us, and we ran 2 user tests, and then you ran a bunch more from there as well. So can you tell us everything that's happened since then, like what you learned from the user tests? You also did some fundraising since then. Yeah, where are you at now?
After going through the prototype thinking process with you a couple times, I took that into my next 20 or so interviews, kept that process going. And with what I discovered from that, it led to getting into the Microsoft for Startups program, a program where Microsoft partners with new companies to provide technical support, go-to-market support, and credits for their tech. So we'll be building on Azure and integrating with the Microsoft ecosystem so that customers can find us through the Microsoft Marketplace and one-click deploy our tool within their entire ecosystem for any customer who wants to add it on, which potentially will cut the procurement period for enterprise companies down from 6 months to 2 years, down to weeks-long processes,
Wow.
because Microsoft already does a lot of that privacy and security vetting that these companies need to do.
To me, this is fabulous, and it's such a great comprehensive solution. Back when we were user testing with Mary Catherine, she was like, oh my God, every integration you're going to have to run through IT. And we're like, dear God, that's never happening. What are we paring it down to? But like actually 90% of everything that you could possibly need lives in the Microsoft ecosystem and the rest lives in Slack.
Yeah, I'm actually about to start developing it. I'm learning the Slack API and working with them on a go-to-market plan together. But the most interesting thing about continuing the customer experience was that nobody actually wants a dashboard. I found that the appeal of a dashboard was more emotional support. But when I showed them the interactions and the kinds of mental and emotional load that the actual chat bot could provide, they'd light up. So I almost kind of started showing them the dashboard and like, hey, how would you use this? Is this something you're used to? And getting them into that space of, yeah, something like this would be really helpful, but being honest, I wouldn't use it, right? Because I started to
Mhm.
sense that that was kind of the direction it was going. And then working into getting past that conception piece that they had back into, okay, well, let's reconsider your problem and reconsider what you know about how this problem is experienced up and down the chain. And essentially, what kind of support do you think would actually be better? What is your vision for how AI could improve this or affect this? What are your concerns about organizations that are using AI to help people with this problem? And it led them into kind of describing the process that I'd already built. And so when I showed them, well, what if you get an email and you don't know how to answer it and you had a tool that could tell you, hey, you take a 10-minute walk around the block and I'll draft a response to this email that will de-escalate and help you get back on track. And every single time it's like, if you could do that, I'd give you anything. And this
Yeah.
was companies, individuals, everybody. The conversation went, how would you interact with it? Who would stop you from being able to implement a tool like this? And that's how I started getting introduced to IT and procurement teams and made it all the way out to Microsoft. That felt really big. So it's like, how can I make it even smaller? And went back to a lot of these people and said, if I didn't give you a dashboard and all I did was give you a private chat buddy who will keep you from blowing your top, would that be helpful to you? And most of them said that would be even better. So to
Wow.
make them, and I know, right? That was the big discovery.
Wow.
We don't actually want a dashboard. And that was it. It's like emotional support. How do I prove to someone else? How do I, the statistics, the data, the whatever, but they have this chatbot. And if they ever actually need that data, they can query through the chat depending on
Right.
their admin status. So they can get real-time updated statistics on ROI from the tool whenever they want or need it.
So it
And not
works
have
both
another.
at an individual level and at a manager level.
Exactly. And so that's why the only thing I need to build right now is an integration with Slack.
I adore this, and I feel like this is an extremely contemporary interface, and this is really where UI is already going. So I totally buy this as a discovery result. And so everything just happens in natural language from the user point of view. And so on the back end, one of the biggest things that you took away from the first couple discovery calls emails was just that the integrations was way, way more complicated than you thought it was. So I was really impressed. You moved incredibly fast on that.
Essentially, what I found when I was talking to IT teams and procurement teams, it was that they had two ways that they procure tech. And it's either through these long, drawn out, miserable, and often failed procurement processes focused on security and integrations, or when they need something, they go straight to their partners' marketplaces. And so if you can get in with a partner, when they go shopping for a solution, they go straight to those marketplaces because the partner has already determined privacy and security. And since the thing that people wanted most was the Slack integration, I decided that a Slack integration was fine for right now, which meant that I had to go learn the Slack API. What kind of data can we take from here? How can we generalize it across these executive function phenotype, which I created using other data. But with the phenotypes, it makes it easier to get a better than 50% accuracy for accumulated stress and intervention style. And so that's the MVP.
I see. So you're inputting data only from their Slack behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough.
Yeah, because with Slack, you actually still have access a lot of times to calendars, to the different teams that they're going to be interacting with.
Okay.
You can still tell relationships, you can test tone, you can test the fragmentation of their calendar and things like that. So it's enough to start with. What I've done is broken it up between the long-term vision and the customer vision, which is people need support right now. And right now, they have no insight into when they're going to perform best and when they're going to accumulate stress and how to relieve that stress before they get sick from it. And so even something as simple as here's your general executive function style, here's your general productivity versus rest cycle, and here is a general comparison between how you're working and how you need to be working. That even as rudimentary as that is, it's not a moat by any means, but it gives us an opportunity to be first to market with this idea and provide substantial support in test things like, will people actually integrate or will they trust an AI tool at that level? How will they interact with it? Because all of that is going to shape how we collect data later on.
I mean, that is really like the quintessential elegant MVP. Because like what we've talked about the entire time before this is this vision of a giant platform that sees everything and intervenes across your entire life and does everything. And it's very exciting from a neuroscience standpoint. But then it's like, what is the delicious bite and like, what is the digestible version of this? And we had sort of tabled that half of the question against also what is the buyable version of this. But what you're finding is that it's actually the same thing and that this is something you can take to market very quickly, get results very quickly. And also, as people buy into it, you can still very easily gather data and start asking them probative questions. And then from there, you can figure out kind of step by step what additional integrations you need for that.
I wanted to make sure that I still had 6-week option, which is the Slack, versus the 6-month option, which is Microsoft. And that is going to be, when we're talking about that long-term vision, that's just beyond useful. It had to happen. But I also had to have a thing that I could do right now. Got to test user flows. What does onboarding look like? What kinds of things do people enjoy in the way that we're communicating? Those are all things that aren't covered in the deep research, but are absolutely vital to the human side, the human aspect. So they're almost
it's like steps 5 to 20. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're doing 1 through 3 now with Slack. And so that's what people want right now. And I have copycats, so I still want to be first to market. So when I started building Rhenari, I knew that executive function was the reason behind productivity loss, performance loss, and mental well-being loss in the workplace. I had identified that burnout and prolonged cognitive control was the universal problem for the entire cognitive spectrum. So it's your neurodivergent people, neurotypical people, they were all having the same executive function problems due to prolonged stress. I think the reason that I failed the first time was because I ran my customer discovery like a public health experiment. And so I was asking people about their health, about their experiences. I wasn't asking questions necessarily about solutions. And this process has been very different, where we're talking about scenario-based. What are you doing? What are your experiences? What is this like? and then getting into, is it worth fixing? Would it be worth fixing for you? After going through the prototype thinking process, I raised $50,000 in non-dilutive funding in the month following going through this process with you. While I was doing these other procurement things, I figured out how to build an MVP that I can take to market and improve people's lives by at least 60% without the deeper research that's going to take another year to complete. I pared down the targeting for my work enough that I doubled my wait list just through LinkedIn and email outreach. I got that biotech grant and I got listed in the state registry as an inventor. Then there's the National Science Foundation has their SBIR grant, which the last time I applied for, I got rejected for. And they're like, hey, if you can do these things, you have a better chance. One of those things is a proof of concept grant. It's like an SBIR 0. And I made it to the final stage in that. So I'm waiting.
Who are you working with?
2 state universities, the School of Mines and Dakota State University. I also connected with someone through the Department of Transformational Play. So we're meeting up in October to talk about collaboration there. And then, so the NSF, they have a pre-program called I-Core. There's the regional and the national. And if you want to get into national, the best way to do it is to get into regional. Long story short, I got into the regional I-Core and I'm going through that process there, which means lots more customer discovery. Gosh, what else? Like, it's been huge. I refined the language on my website so well that AI is actually putting up my solution.
So this is the original one. Your team show signals before performance dips. Like we can't afford fog. Creativity.
And there's so much meat in that I was just
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
Even in
And
what's
then this
already
is
here.
like what it does. And there's so many dimensions of tools here. And this is the new version. And this is how tight it is. This is just like a super cool contrast. You know, it's so visually similar, but the content is so different, right? Like the story is so different.
Because of the work that I've done with prototype thinking, I've been able to repeat the things that I've heard on these interviews. And by running them through the prototype thinking process, I have been able to create marketing, create relationships, open doors that I just wasn't opening on my own before we started. This has been game changing. It has made the work that I do and the energy that I put in so much more fruitful.
Thank you for listening to Prototype Thinking in Action. Please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join our email list and follow us for exclusive access to tools, case studies, and live workshops. All links can be found in the description below. See you next time.